In this video tutorial, we will show you how to build a module or diorama that represents a typical landscape from southeastern Norway. The aim of the project was to add 2 more modules to the existing Heggedal station modules. Heggedal is the home of the train room and is located about 25 km west of Oslo. The existing layout is inspired by the station as it was in 1920. At that time it was on the main line between Oslo and Drammen. Until 1921 it was a narrow gauge line. Some liberties were taken as there was never a time when it was normal gauge and there were no overhead wires. The simple fact that normal gauge was chosen is that Norwegian narrow gauge rolling stock doesn't exist in models. Even normal gauge Norwegian steam locomotives are very difficult to obtain. Compared to other projects we'll find here on YouTube, this one was schedule driven. The deadline was fixed, so the quality would have to be lowered and more money would have to be spent to finish on time. So it was imperative to avoid any feature creep. Many projects failed because of this. The scope of the project was decided in a meeting and the MVP was defined, the minimal viable product. Further features would only be added to the project if this goal was achieved. To expand the station module into a working layout, the idea was to build a circle and a shadow station at the back. The construction of the shadow station is not part of this video as we are constructing on the landscape. There was also another module under construction representing the line along Gjellumvannet Lake. As we only had a limited amount of time to complete the project, its completion was postponed to a later date. It was decided that 2 modules leading to the shadow station would be presented in the following order. The north module would represent the end of the lake at Gullhella, and the south module represents the plain of Underland with the winding river Skjettegga and the waterfall Hengefossen. Yes, the name sounds funny in English, but that's how the river is called. The rock formations are also interesting from a geological point of view. They are of volcanic origin. The nearby Oslofjord is not really a fjord but a rift valley formed at the end of the Permian period when Pangea broke up, before dinosaurs evolved. This is probably the only video where dinosaurs and model trains are mentioned in the same sentence. This led to the formation of a layered structure. The rocks in this area are very reddish. There are many different types of granite in this area named after nearby places such as Røyken granite and Higgen granite. To hide the shadow station we decided to put the line in a tunnel, which it doesn't do in reality. With that little introduction out of the way, let's start building. We choose a large radius of about 80 centimeters, but still have a manageable size of modules that can be transported by 2 people. So we settled on a size of about 1 meter by 1 meter. This is actually quite large for a diorama, but it allows us to represent some larger scenes. As we wanted to be transportable, we first had to build a solid base. We cut 2 base plates out of plywood as well as the side of the layout. We use a table circular saw as it is the best way to make long straight cuts. It's the best to use 2 people for the first cuts. The connector panels follow the Frémaux standard on one side. The next step is to assemble the modules. To make it easier to build the landscape underneath, we add a 5 cm polystyrene base. Since the plates available at the building supplier are not the size of the modules, we have to build it from several sheets. The next step is to outline the railway line and the road. Then we sculpt the Skjettegga and flatten the fields. We used a hot wire knife from Foam Factory, but we had a bad experience with it. So we ended up using a normal knife. It is not important that it is completely accurate, as we will be covering everything with plaster later. On the other module we modeled the lake. The cliffs and the hill are made by gluing several layers of polystyrene together. For the tunnel part, the top layer has not been glued yet, so we can easily access the track bed to install the track later. After moving the modules from Sven Magnus' basement to the train room, we realized that they were flexing too much. This will cause huge problem later, so we added a cross of beams to the underside. This solved the problem. Before we can lay the tracks, we had to add the bridges. As they are very short, we make them of a small piece of plywood. The foundations are made from the wall structure left over from the main layout. For the track bed we use Woodland Scenics track bed, as we got good experience with it on the main layout. We cut a piece to the right length and split it in two as we are lying in a curve. We use PVA glue. To hold the track bed in place, we use small nails to nail it to the ground. Then we put weight on it and let it dry. At the end of the module we make a sleeper from a piece of PCB. Make sure that the copper in the middle is removed. This will ensure that the track is held in place when it is soldered on. The other end is made of a piece of C-track to connect to the shadow station. If you are connecting to another module, just make the other end the same way with a sleeper. A C-track is proprietary to our layout. Next we need to prepare the flex track. We use Peko Code 83 track. The length is longer than one piece, so we have to use two. We start by laying the first piece and bending it to the correct radius. Then we cut the second piece to length. We use a joiner to hold it in place. To make sure it doesn't move, we solder everything together. The last step is to solder the feeder wire to the track. 3 to 3 mm holes on the track to pull the wires through. When everything is in place, use PVA glue on the track and spread it with a spatula. This is on my Carmo liquid nail. Then lay the track and adjust its position. You have a few minutes to do this. Then we put some heavy weight and let it dry. When it is correct, we can cut off the excess track at the end of the module. Let it dry for at least a day before continuing. In the next session we soldered the track to the PCB. We also installed proper wiring underneath the module to ensure that there is enough current. We installed all the modules and tested everything for the first time. We also drilled two 8 mm holes on the side connecting to the next module. To it we put also a 6 mm bolt so we can secure all modules together, with some plate to adjust it. If you do that correctly, you can achieve a gap of less than 200 micrometers. Before we started plastering, we made some adjustment to the cliffs. We also created the road bridge and the railway crossing from 2 pieces of plywood. We molded the foam underneath to make the transition fluid. Then we used construction plaster, which stays fluid for a long time. We used a brush to apply it over all the module. It is important to hide everything that should not be shown. We left it to harden until the next session. It took several hours to cover both modules properly. When the plaster is completely cured, we mask the tracks and we start painting the base. We start with the river. We apply wooden scenic undercoat to make sure it's completely sealed so the resin won't leak out. We also lightly ground the rocks with Tamiya grinding spray paint. Then we start painting all the areas that will have vegetation with green-brown acrylic paint. The reddish cliffs are painted with dark grey and burnt umber acrylic paint, which is not mixed properly to get color variation. If it's too dark, we repaint with diluted umber. At the moment the cliffs are still too dark, but this will be adjusted later. The neck will not be made with resin, so we just paint it with a dark blue greenish tone. From the drone we can see that it's even black. When everything is dry, remove the masking tape. We paint the rest of the track back in ochre. Then we build the road crossing and finish the bridges. We simply glue wooden sticks between the sleeper cut to the current length. Then we apply the ballast with the ballast applicator. The applicator is from Model Railroad 3D and we 3D printed it ourselves. The rest of the ballast is applied with finger and brushes until everything is evenly distributed. Then we repeat the process on the other module.
Pressa opp, eller?
Nei, jeg har gjort det.
Okay.
Du må jo se anlegg for å gjøre det.
Okay.
Du må kjøpe pensel i makeup-avdeling.
Ja.
We spray the wall module with water. To make the water droplets fall as gently as possible, we shoot into the air and let it drizzle over the layout. When everything is nice and wet, we apply a mixture of water, glue and soap to glue everything together. We color the river with burnt umber and add sand and stones. As we didn't have enough soil on the river bank, we painted the banks with glue and spread reddish soil. We also sprayed it with water and applied the water glue mixture. The dirt road is made by painting PVA glue on the designated area. Then we spread sand over it. When everything is done, a good spray of water glue mixture follows. When the road was dry, we had to sand it down so that the cars and locomotive would not be lifted when passing the crossing. This is not really necessary on a static diorama, but we want our trains to run. The next step is to add more sand to the areas that were not nice. As mentioned before, the cliffs have become too dark, so we will use light grey color, which we apply with the airbrush. Where the waterfall is going to be, we paint it even darker to simulate wetness. So the next step is to decorate the bottom of the cliff. We can see from the drone reference images that there is a lot of debris at the bottom. We put some pebbles there. They come from the front yard from one of our houses and are local, so they have the reddish tint. When everything is in place, the water glue mixture comes in. But because the stones are heavy, we use more glue than water this time. While the glue is drying, we use a dry brush technique to accentuate the edges of the cliff. This lightens the rocks even more and brings them closer to reality. The road bridge needs a railing, so we cut some of our small matchsticks to the straight lengths and glue them to the base. The railing will come later. Then we need to add grass to the forest floor. As we were in a hurry to finish the module on time, we decided to glue and apply the grass at the same time with a static applicator. After that, we sprayed some dark turn material where the trees would be. Before applying grass near the tracks, we had to weather them. We use the same technique as in our tutorial video, applying rust first, then earth and dust to lighten it up. We had to make sure that the paint was removed from the track as quickly as possible. Then it was time to grass the rest. Okay. We usually mix different types of fiber to create a more natural look. Uniform grass is only found on a golf course or on a football pitch. In the middle of a road, we also apply some glue and then more grass. The excess is vacuumed up. In one corner we want to have a field where the farmer cuts grass to feed the cattle in winter. This means that the grass will be short in one part and longer in the other. In the front yard of the house we also created a vegetable garden using pigments and sand mixed with glues. We added some driftwoods in the river and glued everything in place. As the next step was to pour resin for the river. To make sure that nothing leaked, it took 4 days to do all steps to make sure everything was dry and cured properly. There was enough horror stories about resin pouring on the net and we didn't have time to rebuild the module. The first step was to seal the end of the river with plastic pieces and a lot of PVA glue. The next day we applied woodland scenic water effects to fill the gap between the plastic and the riverbed. We also used it to make a small dam in the creek so we could fill it with resin. The third day was resin pouring day. We covered the layout with paper to prevent resin falling into the landscape. Then we prepared the woodland scenic deep water pour according to the instructions. Even though it looks small, we need a wall box. Then it is time to pour. If you prepare the resin properly, then there is almost no bubbles. The rest of the resin is poured into the stream that feeds the waterfall. Leave it to harden for 24 hours. It is best not to be near the module so that you are not tempted to touch it to see if it is hard. Once it had cured, we could finally remove the plastic protector on the side. Nothing seemed to have leaked. So the next feature we had to build was the waterfall. After our first failed attempts, Svein Magnus has become quite an expert at building waterfall. The concept was inspired by Luke Torvan, but living in Norway where there is a waterfall around every corner really helps getting a feel for when it looks right. So the first thing you do is to put wire along the cliff from just below where the waterfall starts to the end. Make sure it doesn't go inwards. That's not really realistic and will only happen if there was a strong wind. To give the cliff a wet look, we apply some Woodland Scenic realistic water behind the fall. Then we fix the wire with Bondic UV glue. To make the waterfall, we use some fibers from a Halloween decoration cut to the right length. Then we apply glue to the wire and fix the fibers to it. When the glue is dry enough, we drip realistic water on the fiber. The next step is to apply a small amount of Woodland Scenic snow to create the highlights, which are whiter than white. We use more realistic water to set the snow. Then we finish off the stream at the top with more realistic water. Now it's time to add some vegetation. We add bushes along the river. Our drone footage shows that the river is now covered with bushes and small trees. Since there was much less forest in Norway 100 years ago, we assume that this part of the river will also have less bushes. So we use different materials to make them and glue them with PVA glue. Then we also use some scenic cement and sprinkle some yellow dust on the place with the tall grass to simulate wildflowers. We are doing the same on the other modules. But we also started to plant some trees on the hillside of the lake. In one corner we put a herd of cows. We don't know if there were cows there before, but there is still a cow field right at the entrance to Heggedal. The cows are fixed with Bondic UV glue. Then it's time to make the waves on the lake. We measure the wavelengths of the waves on the lakes. The average wavelength is between 20 and 30 cm. In HO scale that would be 3 mm. We use Mod Podge on the lake. Then we use the airbrush to create fine wave. We didn't get the 3 mm, but it was fine enough. Then we add details around the house, as well as traces of cut hay in the field. Then it was time to add the rest of the details, like fences along the railway line and the fields. They came from Woodland Scenics. On the lake there is a small fishing boat with someone fishing. People still do that today. We also added some water lilies at the edge of the lake. The forest on the top of the hill was not finished. From our reference picture you can see that the forest floor is covered with blueberry bushes, so we added our own. Then we added the rest of the trees. So that's it for version 1 of the modules. The next day was Train Room Expo, so we leave it there for now. We hope the video will inspire you to create a realistic landscape. So watch the time lapse to see how the remaining layout was built around the two modules.